tell people you have to think of it like a professional athlete. You have to work on your speech every day. You have to break it down to segments. There was a Jerry Seinfeld video, I think it was Jerry before Seinfeld, where it's talking about how he'd break everything down into 2-minute increments. And he would go through that and see what was the best one and refine it and refine it and refine it.
Hey, what's up, friends? Grant Baldwin here. Welcome back to the Speaker Lab podcast. Excited for today's conversation. We're going to be chatting with our friend Brian Lord, who is one of the agents over at Premier Speakers Bureau. We actually had Brian on, I don't know if you knew this, back, I think it was 2020, episode 310. We were on like 560 something, 570 something at this point. So it's been a minute. Good to have you back. How you doing? How you feeling today? Feeling good?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Sun's shining, and first one from my house, first interview from my house. So it's nice. You get
good.
It's interview 600, but it's number one here at the house.
Number one, but also like number one in our hearts. All right. And
Yes.
So we have that going. All right. So let's talk about this. We were talking the other day about this kind of like speakers matrix, speakers cross, kind of playing with some ideas behind this. And as we were talking about, we were like, hey, that'd be a really cool concept to talk about on the podcast. So explain to us, what is this idea you're kind of playing with and nursing right now?
Sure. Well, I mean, I get asked by speakers all the time about how you do this. And this is something that I've thought about as an agent forever, is who is around you laterally, who is your vertically in terms of speakers. So I've been at Premier 25 years. Before that, I was at William Morris. Before that, I had my own little bureau in college. That's how you have 30 years in the industry and not be 50 yet. So, and so I'll use just because speakers don't like to think of themselves as a product, but agents do to an extent. Like, you're a human that's also a product.
Yeah.
So my wife used to be a singer. She was one of our clients at William Morris, and she was brought in as what we call a downsell. So you had like this artist, if you remember Christian music from the late 90s, early 2000s, there was this group, Point of Grace. And so
Point of Grace was classic.
Yeah, so they're a higher fee group, and then you had a downsell from them, which is a group called Avalon. So if a buyer called up, they didn't have enough money for Point of Grace, like, hey, book Avalon. So you're not a bait and switch. You're just like, you don't have the budget for this, or they're not available. Here's this option. And then below that was where my wife's group was brought in. And so they were a downsell from Avalon. So they weren't, when an agency's talking to you, they're not going, hey, you're a downsell. But that's what they're thinking. They're like, okay, this is a downsell from there. This group is a downsell from that. Not that there's humans, not that they're who's better human, just where you are in the market at that time in terms of fee. And like groups, like, you can't afford $7,500 for this one, but you can afford $1,500 for this one. Here's this option, because you want to build up those relationships. With us, we're thinking of building relationships with our clients being the buyers, the promoters, the event planners. And so you kind of have this vertical right here of who you are. And so you need to see where you are on that. So if you are a speaker who is at 25,000, who has similar content background that you have, that's at 50, who's at similar content background that is at 10. And so it's really good to say, okay, who is above me, who is below me? And then also find out, well, looking laterally, who do you compete against? Who's within a similar fee range? If you're 25, who's at 30? And who can we have that might fit into that along that axis there. So that's where you get the speakers cross, speakers axis comes in. So who is similar to you in terms of content, whether it's your leadership speaker, who are the other leadership speakers that are 25,000, if you're at 25,000, who's at 50, who's at 10. So once you have that idea, there's some things that you can do with that. Get in touch with that speaker who is at 50, make friends with them, because they are getting stuff they can't handle.
Yeah.
So just say, hey, I really looked up to you for a long time. Build a relationship with them. You can. Hey, if somebody comes to you, they don't have the budget for you, but they do have mine. Can you send them my way? And so be thinking in terms of building up those relationships with who is ahead of you in terms of fee, experience, wherever it may be, and connect with them so that they have a place to go. Because speakers, whoever you are, you get stuff that you can't handle,
right?
And then send it down. And so you get as many of those people and sort of that vertical above you that you can have send back down to you. On the other side, you can look at, okay, who's below you, who's building up. Somebody comes to you, they've got 10, they don't have 25. um, start building up that pipeline. Sometimes that person takes off and they go ahead of you and they send stuff back down.
Yeah.
But it's good for you to build those relationships and send those down to them. The same thing goes with who is lateral to you. Let's say you're working with a client that they never book a repeat speaker. So you start looking through that and say, okay, um, they can't book me for this event next year. Who can they book?
Yeah.
And so you've already built up those speakers that you're friends with. You may have some adversaries that you don't want to send it to, but there are luckily some people that are probably you become friends with. They're somewhat similar to you, but not exactly the same. They talk about, you're a sales speaker. They talk about sales, but it's in a different way, a different approach. Maybe it's more customer experience sales as opposed to using sales and AI, whatever it is. But a similar type audience would like to have that speaker. The most popular person after an event is a speaker who's just done a great job. There's a manager that we work with that she trains her speakers to as soon as an event is finished and we know that they're not booking that same speaker next year, then she trains them, okay, you referred this person. And so it makes it easy for me as a bureau because they call me up, hey, you know what? We just got done with this event planner. He said this woman is a fantastic speaker, and they're completely different. The
Yeah.
main thing is that the speaker who they love, that they're riding that high point from that speaker, just did a great job, said, ooh, you should get the speaker next year. And it makes it so much easier. And you're set up as an agent that, hey, I just know I'm going to book whoever they suggest for next year, even though if it's not even connected. So
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't even make sense. They're just on the same speakers cross just because they have the same manager who says, suggest this person.
Right.
The other thing too is see if you can get that reciprocal. You've got those friends who are in a similar price range, similar background, but different enough that it's not bringing in the same person. And then after their event, say, hey, can you do it? Now, you as a speaker, you're going to have to build trust. You're probably going to have to do it before someone will send stuff back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a way to do it. You can also think of yourself as your own kind of speaker's cross. Like, hey, this is where I am. This center point is where I am. It's my 60-minute keynote. But can you build up to something? Hey, okay, you don't have the budget for this, but how about or you do have this budget, but maybe they've got more. Okay, let's build it into a long-term type of thing, whether it's a speech with several follow-ups or you do a full day, something like that, or they don't have the budget, you can do virtual, or maybe you've got some preset classes. I think a lot of speakers do that anyway.
Yeah.
And you can kind of think of along those lines, your own vertical. The other thing too is when it comes to speakers cross, it's not just don't think of yourself just as a leadership speaker. I found that there are some that we have here because we'll have somebody that calls up. They really like this one speaker in Nashville. Great speaker, can't afford him. Who's down there in Nashville? Different topics, different background. One's like a best-selling the author. Another is an Army Ranger.
Yeah.
But it's so totally different things. But their speakers cross is Nashville. They're both in Nashville. And sometimes people come in. Maybe they had somebody last year. They love Nashville. They spent $20K. As an agent, I'll go, okay, well, here's somebody who's at $50K that you might like.
Yeah.
Or, something happened, they got budget cut, or they want to get 3 smaller speakers instead of 1 big speaker. Okay, well, here are 3 people in Nashville that are smaller here. So you as a speaker are thinking, okay, who else is here in my location? And it can be who are their football players, because some companies just get football players all the time, or they just get athletes all the time, or they just get military all the time. And thinking, okay, who along can I recommend for this next year if I know I'm not doing it? And again, back to your own speakers cross, I forgot to mention this too, is have things lined up of saying, okay, here's what I've done this year. I have a completely different speech for next year. And just, plant that seed for them. A way to kind of double your effect in booking, and we had a speaker who did this recently, is so I didn't even book the date, but he said, he told the client, hey, you should book this speaker and book it through Premier. So he built double the relationships in one fell swoop.
Right.
And so from that point, and so I ended up booking that speaker. This year, I ended up booking 2 different speakers for that client. And I was really grateful for that speaker. I'm pitching a lot more now. Just had him on the podcast. So it's one of those things where you can use your speakers cross to build double the relationship. So it's not just, and it was a speaker I'd never worked with before. I'd heard good things about, so there was some trust there. He wasn't completely out of the blue. But it was something where he definitely helped build that relationship, because it was not just getting that speaker in, it's involving the bureau. you're doubling your impact there.
Yeah.
And, just kind of figuring out how you can look through there, see where you are, see who your competitors are, see who your compatriots are, who's above you in fee and topic, who's below, who you can send things back down to. So but that's something I've been telling speakers recently, of a way that they can kind of a mindset, because a lot of people do this anyway. Like, people know
Totally.
about referrals, people know about upsells and downsells, but they usually don't think of themselves, or don't often think of themselves, as sort of the product.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the tricks a friend of mine who was in the music industry did is to help him think of himself as a product, so to speak,
Yeah.
and not be offended by it, because you will have people that will, just because you are in business, you are part of the business, is that he would use a different name for his stage name than he would otherwise. So he is one of the famous examples is Bono. So Bono is only Bono when he's a musician.
Okay.
Like, none of his friends call him that. It's a stage name.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine was having trouble adjusting to that. So his name is Andy. So on stage he was Andrew.
Okay.
And none of us called him Andrew. It was weird to call him Andrew. But he goes, I have to do this to be able to handle the criticism that comes my way. People are upset at Andrew. They're not upset at Andy, even though like 95% of people loved him, 5% didn't. And it was hard to deal with. So at
Yeah.
least those people were taking shots at Andrew and not Andy. And so it's a way to think of that. So I don't know if you go by, Baldwin to all your friends, like you're a knight from
Yes.
would be.
You got to
Uh,
emotionally separate yourself from the potential shots you may be taking there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but also thinking yourself as a product. It's helpful to think of what you do as a product, not you yourself as a product.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that you covered. I want to unpack. So I think I remember even like when I got started as a speaker, I started tracking like, where are my gigs coming from? How do we kind of reverse engineer this and find more? And found that especially early on, the first couple of years, the high majority of gigs that I was getting was referrals from other speakers. And it was either, like you said, either people that were laterally kind of, they did it this year, they're not doing it next year. And how do I become friends with them so that they refer me, or building some relationships with people who are a step or two above me vertically, I can be their downsell. And it was great for them. And it was also just a reminder that like, ultimately all of us, we're in the relationship business. And so when you build a good relationship with an event planner, if I recommend a quote unquote competitor, it's not necessarily shooting me in the foot, because if in life in general, if you recommend something to someone and someone has a good experience, that builds trust with you. And so it's more likely that the event planner's like, hey, you recommended Tom to us and Tom was awesome, who else do you got? And probably there's a decent chance eventually they're going to come back and be like, hey, we've gone through it, let's just have you back, because you've built enough trust and relationship, versus, having this kind of like scarcity mindset of saying, well, I don't want to recommend my competitor. I don't want, well, listen, you can't do 365 dates a year. And if they're not having you back next year, then you're better off recommending and referring, friends and peers there. So, all right. One of the things I'm curious on is in the kind of the matrix here, we put ourselves at the center, and you are like in the weeds day in and day out. You've been an agent for 30 years. And so, like you have a good feel of the landscape of speakers, and you probably know like, okay, I know this speaker. And so I can kind of immediately mentally make what their matrix may look like. And you mentioned like there's a lot of factors there, fees being one of them, topic being one of them, industry experience, New York Times bestseller, athlete, whatever. What are some of like the most important factors that fit onto that matrix? And then maybe on the other side, what are the factors that like maybe speakers think are important, but really event planners like, you're kind of over indexing on that. It doesn't really move the needle that much.
Well, I mean, the one that is important within the speaker community, but not within event planners or agents, is CSP. So, I mean, I've never had anyone ever say, "Can I get a CSP?"
And for those who don't know, what is CSP?
I think it's certified speaking professional, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the NSA's. The NSA is the National Speakers Association. It's their designation. If you do a certain number of gigs and track it, and it's all verifiable, then you become this CSP. And at their annual conference, they recognize you. And so it's more of like an internal peer recognized thing. And so speakers who've been around for a minute may recognize, oh, you're a CSP. Wow, that's cool. That carries some weight. But to your point, an event planner who's outside of that circle may be like, I don't even know what that acronym means. It carries no weight whatsoever with me.
Yeah, and that's kind of the one, because it is important to people within that. Like I do triathlons and races and stuff like that. And you get certain awards and nobody else cares.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we joke around, like Sean from our office, he can do some sort of CrossFit,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, and it has no meaning to me. It's impressive. It's good. It gets him healthy, everything else, but it's outside of that realm. It doesn't. It's a pure type of recognition as opposed to external. New York Times bestseller. I mean, the joking thing of the way to become an expert is either get a PhD or write a book. So those things are important. Having the book, obviously, you can't sell your PhD, but you can sell books, so that's a good thing to do. And it also helps you work through your content.
Yeah.
I do think. The things. You mentioned a lot of them. It's hard for me to come up with them because, as you mentioned, this is your almost 600th interview. You've heard everything so far. But it is that those topics. Your location is the one where a lot of times speakers don't think of building that network as much locally. Oh, okay, because event planners sometimes the location will be more important than the content or anything else. Even though you're like, okay, well, I could spend,
Right.
15,000 plus 1,500 on this speaker or 20, but they're local.
Yeah. I've
And
never understood that, but event planners can put a lot
yeah,
of weight in that for whatever reason.
yeah, and I think that's the other thing too is not just the money, but it's the ease. They don't have to worry about the speaker getting
Yeah.
in. Some speakers are not good about texting them when they arrive or letting them know we've checked in, and so they don't know if the speaker's there until 2 minutes after sound check. Oh, the
Yeah.
speaker is here. They did show up.
Yeah.
That would be a tip if you were coming in. How to make, just imagine that whatever your most worrisome relative is, and it's the dark and stormy night and everything else, and the bridge is washed out and everything else. That's how the event planner looks at their speaker. They are so worried the speaker's not going to get there. If your plane's running 20 minutes late, hey, 20 minutes, my plane's taking off 20 minutes late, but I should be able to get there tonight.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. Just that worried grandma. That is who that guy or that woman who is running the event is.
Yeah.
Always think of that most nervous person and go to that level as opposed to, oh, I don't want to bug him.
Yeah.
Event planners do want to be bugged about the location of their speaker.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
For speakers who are thinking about like, okay, where do I fit on this matrix? Do you think that most speakers can be self-aware and objective enough about themselves to accurately place where they are? Because I see some speakers, and maybe a lot, who have an inflated view of themselves. And like you said, they may have trouble separating themselves from the product. And so they just say like, well, I know I'm awesome. So I assume the rest of the world understands that. And so I don't, I have very few peers, or there's very few people above me or it's kind of like I should be higher than maybe I am, or my fees should be higher. I'm, here's this person that is charging twice as much as me, but I think in my head, I'm a better speaker than them, even though the fees may or may not reflect that. And so do you think that speakers are self-aware enough to be able to accurately place that? Like, you're a third party, so you can look at that and be like, hey, dude, here's what it is. It's like, this is where you fall. But do you think most speakers can do that on their own?
Well, the free market helps out quite a bit. So the joke one that I keep coming across is, well, the event planner told me I was just as good as Lou Holtz. I don't know why it's Lou Holtz. 50% of the time it's Lou Holtz. Maybe a little bit less now because he's kind of retired. But the event planner sounded better than Lou Holtz, and he's 62.5, and I'm 15,000, so I should charge 62.5.
Yeah.
So it's not just when the event planner says that, they're saying that your message resonated with them after you already got there.
Right.
So you're not the same draw. You don't have the same background. You don't have some of the same charm. Maybe your message and your takeaways are slightly better than Lou Holtz or something like that, or just as good as Lou Holtz, but you don't have all the other things. And so there's a lot of things that go into a fee. So you've got to build up those things. If you do become a best-selling author, if you do have a Forbes column that a lot of people hit, if you've got a LinkedIn newsletter that has 250,000 weekly readers, those things can build up. It doesn't hurt to win the national championship and be a folksy, wisdom kind of guy like Lou Holtz. But don't try to be Lou Holtz unless you're Lou Holtz. Tony Dungy doesn't. He's a great coach and one of those high character guys. So I think when people say that, they're measuring too many things into one spot. So it can be difficult because you only see your good things. You don't see your negatives.
Yeah.
Other people, downsell themselves. They think, they're like, oh, I'm not as good as whoever. And they probably are. So when just taking in mind where that is. So how you can do that without, taking your opinion out is, did you get the booking? Who did you get? So if you can ask the agent, ask whoever, just say, hey, thanks so much. I'm sorry you didn't pick me this time. Or, it's totally fine. I would love to know who you ended up getting to speak and if there's anything I can do better. And you'll find out, then you'll start to see who else is in there, who's beating you out. Because on that day for that committee, for whatever reason, that person was better. And that happens with us too. For whatever reason, that other bureau was better than us. So we have to be able to adjust as bureaus. I mean, that's just kind of the competitive nature of, free market. And sometimes it's things out of your control. They need to have a speaker with a certain background. So sometimes there's things you can't change. And they decided, okay, we were originally looking at fighter pilots, and now we need an AI expert. So unless you're a fighter pilot / AI expert, you lose out. You can't do anything about it. Or it can be sports, military, race or gender, or any of those other things that go into it that somebody wants to have for, as the background of their speaker, and you can't change those things. But there are things you can change. I mean, I tell people, you have to think of it like a professional athlete. You have to work on your speech every day. You have to break it down to segments. There was a Jerry Seinfeld video, I think it was Jerry before Seinfeld, where it's talking about how he'd break everything down into 2-minute increments.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go through that and see what was the best one and refine it and refine it and refine it. And a lot of speakers are like, okay, I've got these great stories, but how do you make that just 2% funnier? How do you make that wording just 2% better? And some speakers are just so good and so polished, they need to downgrade it a little bit. Like Winston Churchill was famous because he memorized every single speech, and to make it seem more real, he would schedule pauses or ums so that it would sound more authentic because he was so polished. Because I have seen a couple speakers where I felt like I was watching Disney animatronics. Like it was just, and so we go here, and this is so good, and everything was timed perfectly, and it felt fake.
Yeah.
Now that's rare. It's more that a speaker seems unpolished than too polished. So again, it's a hard thing. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's something where you have to figure out what's most authentically you, but also most reaches the audience, and try and figure out where those two things meet.
Well, and with certain event planners too, kind of going back to the Lou Holtz example, is that part of what they may be looking for is not necessarily even just like the content of what the speaker may be sharing, but from the kind of cachet that they bring to the stage, So there are, content speakers and kind of celebrity speakers, and the celebrity speaker is kind of like, I don't really care I don't care what they're talking about. It's Lou Holtz, tell us some stories about Notre Dame and your glory days. And like, that'd be cool, And so even if you are, an objectively better speaker than Lou Holtz can probably put butts in seats better than you can. And so there's that factor where an event planner, again, part of it, they're trying to provide content, but part of it, like oftentimes they're trying to sell tickets and they're trying to fill a room. And there's going to be certain names and certain ponds that are just going to carry more weight than other people. And so you have to recognize that. Like if you're not selling tickets and putting butts in seats, that's going to potentially decrease the value, no matter how good of a speaker that you may be. So when we talk about this, we're talking about like some higher fees, bigger level speakers. Obviously, you're in the bureau world. That's been the majority of your career. At the same time, like the majority of speakers are not represented by bureaus and don't work with bureaus and are going to fall in the sub $10,000 range. And so for a speaker who's independent, they're not working with a bureau, how is anything different about this and how they should be thinking about it and applying it to themselves?
Well, it's probably more important because that's one less person that's pitching you.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out because there are a lot of different ways, and it's totally fine to not work with a bureau. I mean, you can have an incredibly successful career, never come close to a bureau. It's nothing against anything. It's just everybody has their different thing. And I'm never against anyone for how they choose to handle a business. As long as they're honest with everything, I'm totally fine with it.
Right.
And so I would say, it becomes more important to do this because any time that you can get something that you weren't actively trying to get, that's good. It's almost like that
Right.
passive income. You're developing, you're planting those seeds. One of my favorite books is Farm. I'm trying to remember who it's by. It's the guy who wrote the book about the atomic bomb, the making of the atomic bomb. And he switched off that and wrote another Pulitzer Prize winning book about farming. But it just made me think how important it is to just plant seeds as you go along.
Mm-hmm.
Like you never know when they're going to come back to help you. There are all these things. Oh, this is going to come back to haunt you. There are a lot of things you plan them the right way. They'll come back to help you when you least expect it. And so building people up that you come across, whether it's another speaker, whether it's a mentor, whether it's an event planner. We've been across event planners who went through tough times. I mean, and it has zero to do, like, I was supposed to follow up with this guy about booking speakers, and I found out his dad passed away, and I'm just like, hey, this is something that helped me when my dad passed away, and I didn't include anything sales. If he doesn't book with me, totally fine.
Yeah.
But just try and figure out ways to build people up, because that's what you're doing. If you're a speaker, your goal is to help people be better after they've heard you than before.
Yeah.
Like, that's the simple goal. Whether it's, even if you're an entertainer, you hopefully they're better by you've lifted their spirits, or you've entertained them in some way, or you've changed them in some way positively. So being a person who is a speaker who has positive impact on other speakers, on event planners, others, even outside of you speaking, that's part of your gig. And if you get that thought into your head that you are somebody who just goes around helping people get better for having met you than if they hadn't, then that's your goal as a speaker. Being a speaker, that 45, 60 minutes on stage is just part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about this a lot on the show and remind speakers all the time that, part of what you're being hired for is to deliver content and in an interesting, compelling, engaging, entertaining way. But part of it is just to be really good to work with off the stage. As an event planner working with a speaker, like, yes, the speaker's important, but it's one of 1,000 moving pieces that an event planner is thinking through and working on related to the event. So again, it's important, but the easier that you can be to work with, the more that you can make their life simple, the more that you're just like a good human. Like, I say this cautiously, but like, it almost means in some ways that like your speech could be, you don't want this to be the case, but like your speech could be slightly not as good. Not that you're phoning it in or going through the motions, but if you're good enough on stage, but you're just great to work with, and you're just like a great human being that makes everyone's life better, people want to work with you. People want to book you. People want to refer you. People want to share your name with other people. Have you found that to be the case?
Oh yeah. That's just a simple thing. I mean, everyone would rather work with somebody that they like and get along with. And that can be something that is, it kind of goes into both things, because that's what event planners will tell us after an event is like, oh, great speech, even better off stage.
Yeah.
And they obviously have to have the good speech. Like, that's a non-negotiable type of thing, but that helps you get that referral business, that helps you get that trust, and that helps to just make the event planner's day better. There are speakers who get booked who are not nice off stage, who are really nice to the CEO and really mean to everybody else. And we always try to give event planners a head up. I mean, luckily that's very rare. That's once a year, but we try to give that event planner heads up, like, hey, just, if you book this person, this is probably what it's going to be like. Maybe not, maybe this will be the good time. But that this person is so famous, or they're so good at this one particular area, that it doesn't matter. And event planners really appreciate that, because then they can go into it and
just know what you're signing up for.
It's extra grace required.
Yeah.
And so then it's usually fine. Like, I know I'm going to have some issues with the person. I'm prepared mentally for it, and it's totally fine. And then they're like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
So it's, we have had speakers make event planners cry before. So, anyway, but that's a rarity.
Yeah.
But you want to be on that positive side. You want to make their life easier. You want to make things more enjoyable. Not just for the executives, but I always, try to look out for the people who aren't as famous, who aren't as, internally famous. Treat the event planner or the sound guy just as kindly as you do the CEO.
If a speaker is listening to this episode and they walk away from this, what do you feel like are the next steps for them in order to best evaluate where they're at in terms of their brand positioning?
I mean, the biggest thing is whenever you come in contact with an event planner or somebody who makes a decision. I was a political science major. My professor said, your constituency is anyone who can tell you no. So the whole thing is if you run for office, you think your constituency are people who vote.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it. It's not just the people who vote. It's the people who help your bill get through committee. It's the people who decide what clip goes on a media report. It's all these different things that go into it. So as a speaker, realize there are so many more people that have an effect on your success or not. And those are the people you need to evaluate, you need to check with. So event planners are the easiest ones to figure that out with. And if they aren't booking, or if they are booking you, figure out who you're competing against. who ended up getting the booking, who was the person, if you didn't say yes, who were they going to book?
Yeah.
Get to know those event planners that way. If you've got a speaker mentor, see where they think you fit into it. Take criticism well. I mean, criticism is a difficult thing for anybody, but it's trying to figure out, okay, you really aren't that good a speaker. You have this one really good joke. Like I'll watch TV shows and I'm like, that was a really great scene, but the whole movie kind of stunk. And you can have that as a speaker where you've got like this one just killer story, but the rest of it's just okay. And people will say, I felt like I was listening to a different speaker for this one part, and this other part was great. And that's a common thing we'll hear is that when somebody's kind of riffing, it'll be a different thing. I had to do a speech once for something, and my wife's like, yeah, when you told this part, it was great. It was so smooth. It was so funny. And the rest of it felt like you were trying to read something off a script, even though I had kind of memorized those parts. And so she's like, just stick to this part. So I did, and it ended up going pretty well. And that's, of course, like a much minor thing. Like I've gone and spoken on stage like 5 or 6 times, and you guys have spoken hundreds of times. And so it's one of those things just to appreciate how hard it is what you do, as opposed to saying I could go out and do it. But it's one of those things where you have to, kind of continuously get better and figure out, even if you're a 9, how do you get to a 10?
Yeah.
And figure out where you are. Where are you fame wise? Where are you connection wise? If you were to if I were to have better connections, how would I go up? Who is actually referring people to me? Or how many speakers can I go? Is it 20 speakers that are referring people to me? Is it 1? Is it 0? Who am I referring people to? Like if I go to speak at an event, who am I referring them to? Which bureaus, if you work with bureaus, which speakers, and try and get all of those numbers up. Who are the people sending stuff down? Who am I sending things to if I don't have the budget, or if somebody doesn't have the budget? Who am I having on my podcast? Whose career am I helping build up? Because it's not just, it's like this. If you have speakers on, I'm sure that helps give them some kind of bump. You've done 589 podcasts.
Something. We've done a bunch.
It's more, I only have like 8 people who listen to my podcast. So you got me beat. But it's how are those ways? Who are your advocates?
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't have to be a bureau, but who are those people out there that are rooting for you that can actually kind of move the needle for you?
Let's shift gears here, and we'll wrap up here. You as an agent, we're recording this mid 2025 or so, give or take, and you are collectively a part of Premier, where you're booking hundreds and hundreds of gigs, and you just got a good pulse on the industry. So curious, like halfway through 2025, what are things that you're seeing, trends that you're noticing? Industries that are rising or falling, economic issues or a lack thereof, topics, formats, anything that you're seeing or anything that jumps out at you?
Well, obviously AI is popular. There were like 2 AI speakers a year ago, and now there are 2,000. So AI, if you're not an AI speaker, don't try to be one, but you can work some things in. So if you have an area of expertise, which is in sales, and you're like, this is something that helps say, with think of it like a major and a minor. So your major is sales. How is AI affecting sales? Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have a whole talk on that, but it is helpful to have a portion that's in there, because everyone's worried about it, and they're like, why would I bring in an AI speaker for sales groups? But if I have a sales speaker who can talk a little about AI, you can do that. And so it can work into that with human resources, into leadership, into communications, whatever it may be. Into teamwork, how you can use AI to help build your teams. Having that little minor in there makes it look like you were a current speaker. So because there are speakers who are those tech speakers that are AI speakers, but building that in, I think, just continuously coming up with new content. There are a few speakers that can kind of go on that old thing. But like one way I try to tell people is, and I'm sure, were you ever a DJ?
I've never DJ'd. That is not in my repertoire.
So I used to do I was a DJ a long time ago. So 91.5 FM WGRE.
Come on now, let's go.
You do that. So imagine, if you will, because I know this is more audio than visual, but imagine those things that are the sunglasses things you can spin, and they've got like 50 sunglasses on. You can spin them around. You get the sunglasses out. Well, for DJ, I was just before it went digital. So we used to have 3 of those carousels that are 6 feet high, and so the first carousel was heavy rotation. So if you're doing your hour set and you get 10 songs, you can get 6 out of heavy rotation. And you'll notice this too, if you're still, even if you're just listening to like Sirius XM, you'd be like, I haven't heard that song forever. I've heard that song 5 times this week. Well, it's because it's a heavy rotation. Whoever the program manager is said, I really want you to hear Come On Eileen, 10 times this week. So you'll have that heavy rotation. Then you've got medium rotation. You get 3 out of that. And then you have light rotation, which is like 1. So you can only pull 1 song out of that one. And so as the program manager said, you can pick anything you want to, but you got to do 6, 3, and 1. Yeah. So you've got your 10 songs for this. So as a speaker, how do you get into a heavier rotation with your clients, with other people? And a lot of times, just think of that like with artists, we're in Music City. You've got to come out with new content. So every 2 or 3 years, you have to have a new book, or you've got to have, like they would have a new CD out, even a new album out. You've got to have some new content, even if it's creating things on a LinkedIn newsletter or a video series, or if you have a podcast, you can create new content that way. You get new ideas. I know like stand-up comedians, they have to come up with something because people have already heard the jokes before.
Yeah.
And even if you still have that main speech you go back to, you need to have different things that can be built into it. What are people, when you get done with an event, what do people ask you and you have new answers for? Just start working that content in. Just like we were talking about those 2-minute segments. Can you come up with a new 2-minute segment every couple of weeks? And can you go back and refine one of your 2-minute segments every couple of weeks? And so you're just continuously upgrading what you have. Every couple of weeks, do you have a better relationship? How can you just make your top 10 advocates? How do you raise those top 10 up? Like, don't worry about those people who don't like you. Worry about those people who do. How do you build that up? Like this past week, just for me with clients, I just made a list of a certain number of clients that I'm like, okay, what's one thing I can do to increase my relationship with these clients over the next couple of weeks? And whether it's, sending them Christie cookies, although Christie cookies left Nashville. So you say it's like a Nashville thing.
Yeah.
Like send them Christie cookies, or, hey, I saw this article. I was thinking about you. I think it'd be great. I knew your company's going through this. Here's some ideas for it. Just how do you build those relationships? And the same thing with this, like, okay, and with those people, send them, if there's other speakers, how do you send them leads? Or how do you, hey, I didn't write this, but Grant Baldwin had a great article and I think you should check it out too. You send it out to your LinkedIn people.
Yeah.
Just showing that unselfishness and that sort of personal security to promote others is a good thing. So I think those are some trends that I think you have to build up that content. You have to build up those relationships. You have to, whatever your thing is, because I never want to tell speakers, like I'm a customer service speaker, I need to switch and become an AI speaker. No, just build that into what you already are, what you really enjoy talking about. If it's sales and networking or whatever it may be, how do you build those things up? How do you adapt them to the times? How do you continue learning? Because if you're saying the same thing you said, even like 7 years ago, your 2019 pre-COVID speech has got to be different than your 2025 post-COVID speech.
Right.
And even how we do things differently helps out. For me, I don't travel a whole lot. I travel less than other agents. Brandon, he's out all the time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, how can I be the best agent I can be in this time? I'm like, okay, I just need to be a great content producer. So, I try to write a lot and I post that. I've got a LinkedIn newsletter. I do the podcast. We do video clips, everything else. So even if I'm just stationary, I'm building relationships because people get to see you online. They get to hear you. What fits you the best. And so I'm not a huge traveler compared to other agents or competitors, but I feel like I can compete with them or do even better when it comes to creating content that gets out there that's useful and entertaining and helpful to others.
What's your magic crystal ball say about the impact of AI on the speaking industry? Because there's always like every couple of years there is some hot topic, right? Whether it was DEI or blockchain or whatever. There's always something that's just kind of like it's kind of top of mind for the zeitgeist, but AI feels different. Like, all right, this is going to have probably a bigger, longer term impact than other subjects or topics may be. One of the things we beat the drum on a lot is that, regardless of what happens with AI or technology or robotics or whatever, like there's still something like hard coded in us as humans to connect with other humans, So do you see AI having impacts on the events space and the speaking industry as a whole?
Well, I'm sure it will. I mean, just because everything changes. I mean, when I first started at Premiere, there was this new thing called e-commerce.
Yeah, yeah,
And so everything is like, are people really going to sell stuff online? It was very scary, and it has affected. I mean, there's a lot of retail chains that went out of business from that. People who didn't adapt, some who've adapted really well. I mean, I look at Wells Fargo. I mean, that was a stagecoach kind of thing, and it's
yeah,
totally different than it was. I mean, obviously, it's had its ups and downs, but I mean, it's I love reading history, and that's a different thing. It is easy to be afraid. One of the history things that comes out to me now is that it used water carriers in a lot of countries was a popular job. People did that for generations, and when they started with like pipes and being able to pump water up mountains and stuff, the water carriers union decided to try and break the pipes
wow,
because pipes were this new technology that were going to change everything for them. Well, it did, and that's no longer there. So we have to and I just think about, like, it's so obvious that would have happened, that
yeah,
once you invented pumps, people aren't gonna it's a lot gets up there a lot quicker, and you don't have this whole job of this 5 generations of people who carried water up a mountain.
yeah,
So it's one of those things where you just have to say, okay, this is going to change something. I might as well be the beneficiary of it. Staying ethical and honest to who you are and everything else. But jobs change. I look at my family; they used to sell horses, and then the car came around. Like our family history in the 1890s. The Lords in Indiana were this big. We still have the posters from it. Their business cards and
wow,
stuff selling horses, and then the horse industry really took a hit when the
yeah,
car came out. So it's not that the car was unethical, and not that it didn't have an impact on. There's so many social impacts that came out of that. But just like with AI, just like with e-commerce, which was really scary to a lot of people, and is our company going to give us emails? We're used to email now. We're used to having websites. I mean, that was a big thing, having a website with actual color and pictures instead of just text. And that's how old I am. But it's one of those things that just seems like it was so long ago, and
yeah,
and so it will change things, but we've got to change with it, and we have changed with it. I mean, most people use email now and computers,
yeah,
and they're like this whole idea. I remember when CIOs, they're like, oh, is there going to be a CIO? What is a CIO? No one knew what a
mm-hmm.
CIO was, and that was what 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things where it's going to continuously change. We have to adapt to it. As speakers too. I mean, I remember I got in trouble for this. I was at an NSA event, and speakers used to spend an inordinate amount of time on their one pager, getting everything on this one particular page. It wasn't a PDF because PDFs didn't really exist then. You couldn't Attachments were too big to send via email, so you would mail them out, and you would mail them with a VHS tape.
yep,
And I went to an event, and we'd come up with our online proposals, which you could send five, however many speakers, 5 speakers with a photo, bio, video, fee, everything else in one link. And the speakers like, what are we going to do with our PDFs? They're not the PDFs, but our one pagers.
yeah, yeah,
Of course, they converted the one pagers to PDFs. And some speakers, I did actually get a request for the first time in 5 years for a one page.
yeah,
And some speakers still have them. Newer speakers don't have them. Speakers have been around a while, still have one just in case. It's one of those things you just adapt. And you have to remember that you are not your content format. If you're a speaker, if the whole world went deaf, you'd become writers.
yeah,
If
yeah,
the whole world went blind, you become speakers. You're a message bearer. And so it will change the format, whether AI changes it, just like virtual presentations change, you're still a message bearer, whether it's
mm-hmm.
in person, whether it's 60 minutes or some reason, you go to this TED Talk thing and it's 19 minutes. All the speeches are going to go to 19 minutes. Well, they didn't go to 19 minutes.
Yeah,
A lot of them, they're back to 60. I mean, that's most of the time it's 60 minutes is kind of the magic number. So you realize that, again, that it's your message that's the important thing as opposed to the format. And AI may change how those things are done, but people are still going to need that message that you have.
yeah,
You just have to be focused on what your message is and how it can connect and help people be better after they've heard you than before.
yeah. Brian, great stuff, man. This has been awesome. We appreciate the
Yeah.
time. I'll
Thanks,
give the
Chris.
disclaimer that I always give. Listen, listener, don't go stalk Brian just because he works at a bureau and you like, hey, man, you probably got some bookings you're sitting
Not
on. You need a
Brandon.
speaker.
Brandon Edmondson.
Yeah,
You
reach
can
out to
find
Brandon. You can
Brandon at
stalk him. Tell him
premierspeakers.com.
Brian said hi. Man, this has been awesome. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Appreciate it.